The Pistons are preparing to make Monty Williams a massive offer to be head coach. That is according to Shams Charania and James L. Edwards III. 2 months after Dwayne Casey stepped down from his role as head coach, the Pistons heavily pursuing Monty Williams. The NBA's winningest coach since 2021 in the range of $10 million. That would put him among the league's highest paid coaches. They made a run at him reportedly last week. He said no. The Pistons are saying, well, wait a minute here. We want you to be our head coach. Yeah. We need you to be our head coach. We will pay you a very high premium to be the Detroit Pistons head coach. We're not giving up.
Yeah.
And I think the Pistons should. And I'll tell you why. They went down this road before. Now, granted, the roster was in a much different situation. But they did hire a coach in Dwayne Casey that really didn't want to coach. If I've got kind of my story right, Dwayne Casey was fired from the Raptors, and he was in a situation where he wanted to go chill out for a little while.
Yeah.
He didn't want to coach. Not the Pistons, not the Knicks, not the Lakers, nobody. He just didn't want to coach. Needed a little bit of a break. And they made him an offer. He apparently couldn't refuse, and he came here, and it's been a disaster. Now, that's not all on Dwayne Casey. That is on a complete roster rehaul and a complete roster overhaul that they did. I mean, Dwayne Casey came to take a playoff team to the next level, and he wound up with a rebuild. So it was false advertising from the Pistons to Dwayne Casey as well. So I'm not putting that all on him. But here's the situation in Monty Williams, where you really are in a situation where you have a guy that doesn't want to coach. You get $20 million for just sitting out. Wants to be with his family. The Bucks are out there in the Eastern Conference. We'll talk about the Celtics. Celtics are probably going to break up. Jaylen Brown. I mean, the Bucks are the clear front runner in the Eastern Conference. I would think easy front runner in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
To be closer to a championship than any other Eastern Conference team, including the Miami Heat. Not this year, obviously.
He didn't get D'Angelo Russell.
But Monty Williams is not up for that job.
Yeah.
You don't hear Monty Williams' name up for any job because I think he's made it clear that he doesn't want to coach. If you get him to coach for a paycheck, it's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing Monty Williams of that, but if your heart is telling you one thing, believe it. If you want to sit out, sit out. Don't come take this money if your heart isn't in it. And I just am not sure if his heart is in it this with the Pistons, the Bucks, or anybody else that's looking for a coach.
Yeah, true. I mean, you're talking about a situation where, he may want to sit out. You say he didn't want to coach the first time around, so maybe that is the thing. Money definitely moves the needle. Now, I said, a couple seconds ago that money isn't everything it isn't, but money definitely moves the needle. I think you got to look at it from this standpoint. With Dwayne Casey was much older in years. Now, when he was coming here, he wanted to sit out too. He wanted to sit out because he knew what he had built with the Toronto Raptors. He had built a team that was built to win the championship. They then fired him after winning Coach of the Year. He knew what he had built there and every right to be angry as they won the championship the following year. Then he comes here, but he's much older. He was 60, I want to say, or 61 he was when he took over already. Monty Williams is 51. So I think it's going to be a situation. Anybody that takes over the job here, to a certain extent, is coming to be in the best space financially, if we're being honest. It's Detroit Pistons' job. You're coming here. You're coming, one, it may be the only job you can get. It can be one of the ones you can actually achieve. And two, you're coming in for the bread. So I think we can't overlook the fact that that's just the city or that's just the team that we have as it relates to the NBA.
I'm with you, Rye, when it comes to just coaching for a paycheck.
Yeah.
That's a no-no. I mean, I hope if he makes a decision, I hope he is at peace with it no matter what he does. And then I hope Tom is at peace with moving on if he has to.
And then you look at the landscape of the NBA. I mean, if Monty Williams collects his paycheck this year just for sitting out,
he'll be back next year.
You can look around the league. Maybe Joe Mazzulla will be out in Boston, preeminent franchise in this league. Maybe Tom Thibodeau will be out in New York, preeminent franchise in this league. Hell, maybe Darvin Ham will be out. Preeminent franchise in this league. You never know with the Lakers or even the Clippers or any of these other. I mean, you're talking about some really, really big franchises in spots throughout the NBA, and then you look at this mess that we have here in Detroit, and yes, it is a mess. Why would you want to come here if you have those options out there?
Exactly.
Maybe 12 months from now.
I agree. I was just listening to you and shaking my head. It's a tough decision. Anyone leaving those positions, anyone leaving those teams, like you're talking about the guys that are up to be hired right now, they either come from being in the finals the last couple of years or they come from winning a championship in the last 8 years or so. They don't want to come here. The only way to get them to come here, if you're talking about that pedigree of coaches, it's going to be to up the pay a little bit, to bump the number up a little bit, to say, hey, let's take you from here to here with that work to a certain extent. Because if not, then you're looking at a Lee, or then you're looking at an Ollie. And Ollie's a guy that's done some work in the G League. We know what he did at UConn 2013, but is that the guy that's going to take the Pistons to the next level? Is that the guy that's going to get Jaden Ivey to play with Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren next year and keeping Bogdanovich? Is that going to be the guy? Is it Lee, who is the runner-up for the Bucks job because of him coaching under Budenholzer? We just don't know those things, and it seems like to get that guy to come here, it's going to take a little bit extra bump in pay for the big dogs.
And you do need a bit of a star here, and is one of those stars, a superstar really, is Jaylen Brown a superstar? Is he a player? Because anybody that the Pistons could acquire is going to have flaws. There is no perfect player that the Pistons could acquire this offseason in a trade, in the draft, or otherwise that is going to be the perfect player. You are going to have to take a chance on somebody. Who that somebody is, I don't know. You got to get creative. You got to give a jolt to this franchise, a little kick in the pants to this franchise, and maybe Jaylen Brown is that guy. Maybe a sign and trade for a max deal is something you've got to do, and you're going to have to part with one of those guys, be it a Jaden Ivey or Jalen Duren or a Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, we'll get into Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in terms of what they're going to do, because that's a real thing. We didn't talk about that yesterday when we talked about them losing, how epic the collapse was. We need to get into that, but just quick story with Jaylen Brown. You know, looking at Jaylen Brown to come here, that's a move. The team is going to want to talk to the team. They're going to make sure, but first they got to talk to their player. And Jaylen Brown, I'm not trying to lead the Celtics to come to the Pistons. Like, I'm not trying to lead for what that is. It just wouldn't be something that I would be trying to do. But if you're talking about it from the Pistons, I don't know how the trade situation works in terms of what would you be able to give up to get a Jaylen Brown. Like, if you're the Celtics, what if you're the Pistons, what are you getting to get Jaylen Brown from them? That's tough.
Well, you do have assets. You know, you do have the number 5 overall pick. You have the number 5 overall pick, Jaden Ivey, who looks like a good player. Is he trade bait to get one of these guys, and or Cade Cunningham? Now, Cunningham wouldn't be a fit in Boston, I don't think, because, you know, Tatum and him play the same way. But maybe if you're trying to get a Jaylen Brown, maybe Jaden Ivey is a player that you throw up in any trade compensation. Tom E. Curran had this to say about the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown split.
What are the themes going up against Miami, and what may make them an atypical
That was Mike Malone. We'll get to Mike Malone in a minute. Tommy Curran just tweeted out about is it time to break up Brown and Tatum, the dynamic duo, because maybe they've reached their ceiling. And again, Tom E. Curran, 15 years after the title run was punctuated by the KG scream, anything is possible. These Celtics proved that that's still true, and that was the problem. Final thoughts on logic-defying season that went steadily south after the All-Star break.
It's a good read.
It is. Tommy Curran, one of the best local sports writers in the country. I mean, what he does for the city of Boston. Even Maz agrees on that. But really thoughtful piece there. And Brown is one of those guys.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, please, Maz.
After watching the Celtics this whole offseason, I was really enamored with Jaylen Brown. And as the series went further with the Heat, he kind of disappeared in big parts of the game. I'm not sure if he's a guy you want to build around. Now, I know he's a terrific player, and he's not, what is he, 24 years old maybe?
26.
26? I don't know if I'd want to build my whole team around him. I think I'd rather roll with our guys that Troy Weaver drafted here and go outside that and just add pieces around these kids. Look, they were tanking the last 3 years. They're not going to tank anymore. It don't work. Look what happened to the Sixers. Now they're going to play ball. They're going to bring in some players. You got Bogey still. I think he's gone on trade night, to tell you the truth. I really believe they will trade him. That's just my take. I know they kept him at the deadline last year, but a lot of people want that kind of guy on their team. He's in his 30s. I don't know if he fits this team. I believe let's stay the course. Let's see who you draft at 5, and let's see who he puts around these guys. Because if it don't work this time, then maybe Troy Weaver ain't the guy for us.
It's funny you use pieces because I agree with pieces of your conversation. Like, I agree that I wouldn't have Jaylen Brown in Detroit in terms of, this is the guy I want to build around. I don't think he's the guy Detroit wants to build around. When the game was on the line for him, and obviously he's been playing bad this whole playoff series, especially the last series against the Miami Heat's been horrible. But when the game was on the line, first possession of the game, Jason Tatum gets injured. Jason Tatum can't go like Jason Tatum can go. So where are they going to go? They look to the guy that had been a leader at times last year in the playoffs, last year in the finals. You can argue that Jaylen Brown showed up more than Jason Tatum has in the playoffs the last 2 years, minus the 51-point game that he had this year.
Though.
You said what?
Tatum was hurt.
But what I'm saying the last 2 years, what conversation were we having last year? Where's Jason Tatum?
Yes, absolutely.
Jaylen Brown was there, showed up. Now this year the roles reversed. Jaylen Brown didn't show up. When they looked to him, say, hey, you're our guy. We need it from you. 8 turnovers the most in a Game 7 in Eastern Conference Finals history. Like, he's a guy that disappeared, missed all his 3 pointers.
Looked like he quit a little.
Looked like he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Like, looked like he didn't want to be there. So, Maz, I agree with you. That's not the guy that I transfer. That's not the guy that I move pieces for. That's not the guy that I bring in to build around. But as it relates to Tatum and Brown, I wouldn't split them up. Like, I would not split them up. You wait to get a big 2, a supermax 2, a big 3. You need 2-3 guys in this league nowadays to win. They've been to 5 Eastern Conference Finals together. They've been to a finals last year, which, oh, by the way, they won the first game. This year was horrific. They brought in Malcolm Brogdon. He was supposed to be the piece.
Yep.
Never really kind of got it going, although he did win 6th Man of the Year. Marcus Smart, who won Defensive Player of the Year. His main role was a facilitator. He was a lockdown defensive guy. He's the leader. I didn't see him lock down anybody in this playoffs. In fact, I saw him get embarrassed by a bunch of different guys in the last 2 rounds of the NBA Finals. He's not the guy for them. They need to restart their team, but they need to keep those 2 pieces in play.
And really hard to do, to pay somebody $295 million and somebody to pay $325 million. Really hard to do and field the team.
It's really hard to get rid of Jaylen Brown and try to fill that role with a 5th pick, a Jalen Ivan and Jalen Duren.